Hi friends! Today what I'd like to do is prep you for a question that you are going to get a lot when your book comes out. So my book, The Book You Were Born to Write, Everything You Need to Finally Get Your Wisdom Onto the Page and Into the World, published just a few weeks ago. And this question is coming at me from every direction. What is it? How is the book selling? How's it doing? How's the book launch going? How did it all go? Was it a success? I'm getting these questions from all over the place from really wonderful people who are excited about my book and really hoping that I'm going to say, oh my gosh, it's going amazingly well, which the truth is that is how I've been answering it. But I haven't been giving them any specifics, and I definitely haven't been answering the question, how's it selling? Because the truth is, I have no idea how it's selling. How crazy is that? I do not have any idea how many copies of this book have sold. This is one of the quirks of the publishing industry when you are working with a traditional publisher. As an author, we don't have access to sales numbers. We don't have a system we can go look them up in. The best we could do is go on Amazon and see sort of how's it ranking. But that doesn't tell you anything about actual sales numbers because those rankings have basically nothing to do with anything but how's it selling compared to other books in that category. So I have no idea. I mean, on one day, the sales ranking might be 10,000, and that means like I sold 10 copies that day, and another day that the ranking might be, 50,000. That means that I haven't sold a copy in a couple days. There's really no way to track it. So the only way to know actually how many copies have sold would be to contact my publisher and ask them to look it up in NPD BookScan. This used to be called Nielsen BookScan. They've done a little rebrand. NPD BookScan is a system that's been tracking book sales since 2001. Prior to 2001, so back at the very beginning of my time in the book business, I got into the book business in 99, we had no way of tracking how many copies were actually walking out of retailers' doors, which seems crazy, right? It seemed crazy at the time. And so when BookScan came online, everyone was very excited about it. The thing about BookScan, though, is that it does not track every single sale. It only tracks from the retailers that actually report. So this is all big box retailers. So this is, anything from Target to obviously Barnes & Noble, right up to Amazon, Baker & Taylor and Ingram, which are the book distributor companies, and many of the independent booksellers as well, so independent bookstores. But it really only tracks about 75% of the books that are on sale at any given time. So it's not exactly an accurate measure. However, it's all that the book publishing business has. So we really look at it a lot when we're sitting behind an editorial desk or at an agency. But to get a subscription to BookScan is very expensive. Like I think last time I looked into it, it was something like $15,000 a year. So obviously only the big publishers can afford to have the access, right? So I don't have it. I have no idea how many books are selling. So when someone asks you this question, how do you respond? The way that the metric that I think is actually most important to ask about if you're asking someone how their book is doing is, what was the publisher's first print run? That is a really good measure of the confidence the publisher has in the book. So for The Book You Were Born to Write, I was very happy to hear that Hay House published 10,000 or printed 10,000 copies in the first print run. No matter what publisher you are working with, whether it's big or small, 10,000 copies is a really solid first print for a first-time author. It means that your publisher has quite a bit of confidence in your ability to sell the copies of the book. So that's one thing that I know, is that they have confidence in me. There are a lot of books in the marketplace. That's a really good thing, because if you don't have a lot of books in the marketplace and you're being published through a traditional house, you don't have that many opportunities to make sales, right? Now, all of this is different if you're self-publishing. When you're self-publishing, you don't pre-print books these days. Most self-publishing operations will have something called digital print-on-demand technology. And that means that you only have to print one copy at a time. It's actually economically feasible to print just one copy. So you won't end up having 2,500 copies sitting in your garage, which is really good news. And one of the reasons why self-publishing is so affordable and within reach of everybody these days. But when you're publishing with a traditional house, they still do these print runs, right? So I know that there were 10,000 copies printed. What I don't know is how many have shipped. That would be the question that I would ask if I did decide to call Hay House, my editor over there, and say, hey, how's the book doing? How many copies have shipped? That means that there are booksellers out there in the world who have ordered copies of the book. They want them on the bookshelf. So knowing how many copies has shipped will give me some idea of like, you know, how many are available for sale? How many are sitting on bookshelves in brick and mortar bookstores? And also how many does Amazon bring into their warehouse, and they bring in only the number of copies they think they're going to move in a short period of time, like a week or 2 weeks. So how is that going? Another question I might ask the publisher, which I have not done yet, would be how many copies now are shipping on a weekly basis? Of course, the book just came out, so the number of copies shipping on a weekly basis now is not really a good measure of how many will be shipping over time. That is really what an author should be looking for. How many copies of my book are going to ship out on a weekly basis over the course of the next year, 2 years, 3 years? By the time a year has passed, the book no longer is considered on the front list for the publisher, meaning it's not one of their newest books. It's now moved to what they call the backlist, which is just a term. It's not like it actually goes anywhere. But it used to actually, when there were printed catalogs, the backlist was in the back of the catalog. The front list were these big, you know, double-page spreads with color images of the book, etc. And all the way in the back was the backlist. These were the books that were selling really well but had published a long time ago. Just as a reminder to the booksellers who are flipping through the catalog, oh right, I should also get a couple copies of that. That seems to always sell well for us. What I would love is to turn out to be a backlist bestseller for Hay House. That would be a wonderful outcome for the publication of my book. I know this because I spent a lot of time in my publishing days, specifically my entire time at Penguin was spent at one of the paperback divisions. And in paperback, you are basically most of the time publishing backlist. You have some front list titles that are going straight to paperback, never make it to hardcover, but mostly we were managing the backlist and we were doing fabulously. We had Toni Morrison on our backlist. We had Mehmet Oz on our backlist. We had a ton of really great books that were paying all of our salaries, really, even though they published many years prior. So to be that for Hay House would make me so happy. It would be something where I would know I was supporting the publisher with a book that continues to sell year after year after year. So why am I not pestering the publisher for these numbers? Well, first and foremost, because I used to be an editor and I know that it's kind of annoying to be pestered over and over about your numbers. I want to wait and ask once enough time has passed that we would have sort of an accurate idea of the sell-through. Sell-through is the number of books that have shipped out minus the number that have come back. Because in the book publishing business, there is something that is very unusual in retail, which is that you are allowed as a bookseller to return copies of the book that you have not been able to sell. You have a certain period of time to return them and get that credit back to you. That is almost unheard of in the retail business, and it's one of the reasons why people think that publishing is a pretty bad business financially, because you know you can ship out hundreds of thousands of copies of a book you think is going to be a major bestseller and have all of them come back, which of course means that you have all this inventory that you have a hard time moving, and then you've got a lot of money that's wrapped up in that inventory that hasn't sold. So that's why publishers are really careful not to overprint and not to overship, so that the sell-through rate is where they want it to be, which is obviously the higher the better. When I was, again, at Penguin, I believe that our sell-through for our paperbacks was about 45%, meaning 45% of the books that went out got sold. And that was considered a high sell-through, just to give you an idea what the book business is like. So I'm going to wait several more weeks, maybe wait until 2 to 3 months has passed since publication before I check in about book sales. So in the meantime, how do I answer the question, how's it going? Was the book launch a success? So I want to tell you what I think are actually the more important metrics that I am tracking around my book. The number one most important metric that I'm tracking is that people are letting me know the book is helping them. I can't tell you how gratifying this is. I've been hearing from it on a daily basis from would-be aspiring authors who've been reading my book and have said, wow, I've made so much more progress on my book project since I got your book than I did in the previous 2 years that I was trying to work on it. People have said, I sat down and I read the whole thing in one sitting. I can't believe I didn't have this guide before. I've just gotten the most amazing feedback. To me, that is the most important thing. I know that my book is helping. So As for, the question of whether the book launch is working and how happy I am with it, I am thrilled with it because I'm getting so much positive feedback and hearing that it's actually helping people. The second metric that I'm looking at, because I published this book, I'm the front person for my business, KN Literary Arts, and what we do is help aspiring authors take the next step on their book journey. And so that we have a call to action on the website. We want to get on the phone. We want to have you speak to an editor, maybe for the first time in your life, ask the questions that you've got, see if there's some way that we should be working together. And our calls have gone way up since I started launching the book. Like not just doubled or tripled, but even more than that in some cases. Since the book launched, since I really started with the launch, which is about 6 weeks ago, let's say, we have had more calls in the last 6 weeks than we had in the previous 4 months combined. So to me, that is a metric I have my eye on. One of the reasons why I decided to write the book and to put the time and energy into writing and launching the book, and believe me, it's a lot of time and energy, especially if you're wanting to really put a lot into the launch, is to help more people learn about KN Literary. I want people to know there's a resource here that's specifically for transformational authors where we can help you at any stage of the game. That is my goal for, in terms of the financial goal of the book. Books don't usually make a lot of money for their authors. So every copy of this book that's sold earns me about $3, and it's a $26 book. Okay, so that tells you that this is going to be hard to make a super moneymaker for my company and me. But our editorial services actually have been my financial support for years and years. And I would love to be able to expand and grow and do more marketing and reach more audiences. And so the more people that we find that find their way to KN Literary, the better. And so for me, that is a second metric that I'm tracking that's doing fabulously well. So when I come to my goals for this book, number one, to help people on their book journey. Number two, to show them the way back to KN Literary. Both of those, I feel like I'm knocking out of the park. So I just wanted to give you this chance to think about what your metrics will be when your book comes out. In what way do you want your book to help people? How will you be able to track that? How will you know? And then secondly, what is it that you would like it to do in terms of supporting your business and your message getting out into the world in a bigger way? And how can you assign a metric to that you can track before, during, and after your book launch? And that will give you an excellent way to decide whether you've done a good job and where you should put more of your attention as time goes by. I hope this has been helpful to you. I've been so excited to have you guys on this book journey with me. Thank you so much for following. It's been a really wonderful, wonderful experience. And I will hope that all of you have wonderful holidays. There's going to be so much more coming your way in 2019. We really have big, big plans for helping you make 2019 the year of your book. So stay with us, and I hope you'll come back next week. And in the meantime, happy writing.